Good morning. I'm back upstairs. Well, for the moment anyway. It's a bit chilly to be up here for too long. Hopefully it'll warm up in a bit, because I'd like to think that I could work a bit more on the dress and maybe get the collar done today, if nothing else. But the first thing this morning, I've come up to print a couple of recipes off that I hope to make soon, because I don't know what ingredients I need. So I thought if I print them off, then it's done and I can put them on my shopping list. But it's quite chilly this morning, and I don't know why. John's outside building a new chicken shed door, and I think he's just bonkers for it. The wind's quite cold out there, but he seems to like put loads of layers on and a hat on, and he doesn't feel the cold, whereas I feel the cold really easily. So like getting up on a morning, I'm like, oh, it's cold, and he's like, really? I didn't realise. And he's sitting there in his works uniform in a short sleeved shirt, and he obviously runs a lot. Well, maybe it's if he runs hotter, he would feel the cold more. So maybe he doesn't run hotter than me. He runs colder and therefore doesn't feel so cold. I'm not sure. So I'm going to print these recipes off first and probably have a look at the instructions for the collar. I know I can't usually wrap my head around it, but if I literally just follow the instructions as they say, they do work out. But it's kind of like you got so many pieces to a collar. Well, there's not that many pieces, but because of the collar stand and the way you have to like stitch it and which pieces are the right way and which pieces are upside down and stuff, it just gets a little bit confusing. So I want to get that done because obviously the bottom hem should be relatively straightforward. I need to decide what I'm going to do with the ends of the sleeves as well, whether I'm just going to do like a narrow, like a band, and kind of slightly cinch in the end of the sleeve just to finish it off, or whether I want to put a cuff end on it. I'm not sure. There are advantages to both. A cuff end you can kind of turn back over like a 3/4 sleeve sweater, which I quite like the look of. But a cuff also means that if you want to wear a long sleeved sweater, it can look bulky. Because I've got my dress that I've got on now has a cuff end, and it makes like this part bulky on the sleeve a little bit, not a lot, but it bothers me a little bit. So I'm not sure yet. I need to decide what I'm going to do there. But the collar, as far as I'm aware, should be, you know, fingers crossed, straightforward. I have a furry helper this afternoon. Both the cats love being up here, but most of the time Willow, the other cat, isn't allowed up here because she's naughty and she chews boxes, cardboard boxes. Loves chewing cardboard boxes, which means she trashes all the boxes things are stored in the other room. But Holly, she's really good. And she loves being up here. It's nice and cool up here, or in my case it's way too cold for me. But Holly's got long thick fur, so she likes it where it's nice and cool. I'm going to move the camera over here so we can see what we're talking about, and zoom her back out. Okay, so I have my pattern pieces for the dress here, for the collar rather. Let me just try and adjust this. There we go. So I have my collar pieces. They still have the pattern paper attached, and I need to attach it onto the collar here, but I need to remember how to do this. So I need to look in the booklet. I know it's some weird complicated folding and piecing together bit, so I'll have a quick look at that and get these stitched up. I'm now in, whoops, the cat's knocking the camera. If you use a sewing machine on a regular basis, you may spot I have a zipper foot on my machine, and the zipper foot, I would say, is on my machine 80% of the time. Mostly because most jobs I can do without having to swap back to a standard foot. You can do pretty much anything with a zipper foot on it. And it just saves me swapping it back and forth. I find the zipper foot just that bit easier sometimes to manipulate the fabric. I find sometimes the main standard foot can sometimes, especially if you've got a small seam allowance, it can just kind of pull your fabric where you don't want it to be. So I usually leave the zipper foot on most of the time. So I'm going to sew these two under collar pieces together and then join it together with the upper collar, I think it is. 2 under collar pieces, then yeah, the upper collar piece and the under collar piece, and then we've got to work on the collar stand. Just too many pieces. So I have a collar of sorts on my dress. It has worked, it's just not like the neatest job I've done, but it is attached. I always seem to have problems with the end of where the collar stand meets the end of the dress. I'm going to make a couple of notes on the instructions, and there is a mistake in the instructions. So if you ever get the penny dress and the instructions, I'll show a little bit of the instructions. I couldn't cover it most of it. Here, where it tells you to use, I think it says the inner collar stand to the neckline. It's not the inner collar stand, it is the outer collar stand. And it took me a while to figure it out, with lots of cursing and swearing, as to why that made absolutely no sense. And I think I had this, obviously I had the same problem the last 2 penny dresses I've made. So I've crossed out the word inner so that I know for future. But I'm also going to write down when I sew the collar stand onto the dress to work from both tips to centre, so that I can get the end of the collar stand really enclosing the end of the dress, because I find for some reason, it must be just my seam allowance has not been very accurate, but I find the collar stand being slightly too small for the neck opening on the dress. I probably do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I bet I've done 1/2 inch seam allowances on the dress, like for all the panels, which is kind of what I would do normal, but this dress I hadn't realised until earlier that the seam allowance is 5/8, so I've obviously added on like 1/8 of an inch for each of the panels, so therefore it's slightly wider than the collar. So I must try and remember that next time, because the information for what the seam allowance is isn't kind of like in your face in the instructions right at the beginning. Well, it is, but it's not, in my opinion, noticeable enough. I've just realised I'm going to have to put another stitch on that one, but otherwise I'm going to go downstairs for a cup of tea. It is 4:45 and I need to think about dinner. I think it's going to probably be shove it in the oven dinner. So I don't know, oven chips and something, oven chips, peas and fish probably for tea, because I need something easy. I need to just sit down and have a cup of tea, not have to think about what I'm going to cook next. So that's what I'm going to do, and I need to figure out what I'm doing with the cuffs on my Let's Boogie sweater. I cast off both sleeves last night. The first one I did a short 2x2 rib and I didn't like it. So the second sleeve I did an I-cord bind off to see if I preferred the look of it. So I'm going to try that on now that I've blocked the sleeves and decide what I'm going to do. I'm not entirely convinced on the I-cord. And then the I-cord it should be alright, but the cuff just looked weird. So I've got that to do. Finish off the second bind off depending on which I choose, and I've been working on the bottom of the body as well, so I'm hoping to get most of that done tonight, up to the point where I need to knit the rib. If not, then even start it possibly.